I have been disturbed, as I know many of my constituents and people across this country have been, by the separation of migrant children from their parents. And there was a January report from the Office of the Inspector General at DHS that found that the total number of children separated from their parents by DHS is unknown and may be in the order of thousands more than originally determined. A federal judge ruled last week that the government now has 6 months to identify the other children that are separated from their parents at the border. Can you update us on this and what the department is doing to identify those children and reunite them with their parents or family members?
Thank you, Senator. So what I can explain is what we're doing now and how that looked before the Zero Tolerance Initiative last year. What we're doing now is we see almost 1,600 families a day crossing the border in March. We have fewer than 2 that are separated from a parent or a guardian. And those are cases where it's for the welfare of the child, a communicable disease issue, a parent who has to be rushed to the emergency room, a criminal history that presents a risk to that child, or a specific indication of abuse or an unsafe situation.
I don't want to interrupt you, but what I'm trying to get to is what has been identified by the OIG, which is how many children do we know who have been separated and we don't know where they are, where their parents are. Do we have any kind of a number around how many of those children there are? Because that, I understand, is what has not been clear.
Sure. So I described our current practice, which is governed by executive order and court order, because it's consistent with what we were doing up until May of 2018 as well, for that 6-week period of zero tolerance. So really, I don't know the basis for the HHS IG suggestion that there are thousands of children that could have been separated and unidentified. Again, this was an extraordinarily rare circumstance before zero tolerance. It's an extraordinarily rare circumstance now. And we've accounted for all parents and children separated during zero tolerance when their parents were prosecuted. So we provided that information. It's been reported transparently to the Miss L court by Health and Human Services and DOJ.
Well, then why would the judge have ruled that the government has 6 months to identify the other children?
Because he's expanded the time parameters of the analysis for HHS. So they have to go back before the start of that case and look at additional separations. Again, my belief and strong understanding is that those will be tracked in a smaller number than suggested by the HHS IG, and specifically for those kind of circumstances where there's a risk to the safety of the child that I outlined.
So I'm out of time, but just to be clear, what I hear you telling me is that the department has reunited all the children that you're aware of that were separated with a family member or with their parents, and that right now we have no other children that you're aware of that have been separated?
Not precisely, Senator. I refer to the filings in the Miss L court that very clearly express the numbers and their status that have been reunited. What's happening, again, on a day-to-day basis is there will be separations from a parent or guardian for the safety of the child, and those children will not necessarily be
I'm not asking you about that, though.
Okay.
I'm asking you about previous separations and how many children are in the system that we're aware of that have been separated and we don't know what their current status is.
Yeah.
And I understand you to say that you don't know?
No, I'm saying it's a very small number as provided to the court in the Miss L court filings, and they'll be updating it, as you noted.
And what was the number in the court filings?
It's around a dozen that are still remaining to identify a parent. There are several that are not going to be reunited at the parent selection or because of a risk presented to the child. This is all expressed in the data submitted to the court, and I would commend the committee to review that.
Thank you, Madam